Hi.
Hey, how are you? I'm Lindsey Kilgore.
Hi, Lindsey. I'm Boyd Rogan.
Nice to meet you.
Well, here's Farrah. Admit her. Are you a teacher, Lindsey?
I am. My official title is instructional specialist. So
Where are you?
I'm with Pelham City Schools.
Just tell them, local girl here.
Yeah, well, I actually just started with them on March 30th, in the middle of the pandemic. So I was with Tuscaloosa City Schools before that. So
Okay. Very good. Well, thanks for helping out today. Let's see.
Yeah. Hey, Farrah.
Hey, Lindsey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Ready to do this?
Yeah. The page, I checked the page numbers. They're a little bit off from my instructions, but I figured it's probably going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, we can just tell them that.
Yeah,
Farrah,
that's kind of what I figured.
Yes,
Farrah,
sir.
do you need to be the host?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then once you've done that, I'll make you co-host and Lindsey co-host.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
We found out yesterday or the day before that only the host can open up the breakout meetings.
Right.
Can the can the co-host visit the breakout rooms?
Yes, but I think you can't change out of the different rooms unless there's some way that I can figure out how to do that. Okay, just made you a co-host, Lindsey.
Okay.
Yeah,
and Jennifer, I don't see her yet. Our panelist. Been emailing her.
I don't have her name.
Jennifer Touchstone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been kicked out of my location where I was gonna do this, so my background is not as great as it was.
That's okay.
I was in a little conference room and our superintendent walked in and like, hey, and I was like, oh, do you need the room? He's like, yep. And I was like, okay. Let me get on out of here then. And then I tried somewhere else and they're doing something in there. So here I am.
Oh, Jennifer, yesterday, I remember that I have a dot cam at my house. So I plugged it in and we were able to go straight from the presentation to like examples of the forms and stuff and the instructions. So I've got that set up so we can go back and forth as needed there.
Okay.
Worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wonder if Jennifer's just kindly.
I don't see her in the waiting room.
No.
I'm also going to join on my phone.
Okay.
Because I don't have another computer. My school computer is being fixed. So, yeah, the webcam is messed up. Let's see here. It looked like this morning's group, I jotted it down, I think we had 37. So that's not really a great big group.
It's not too big.
No, but most people had gone through it yesterday.
True.
We had, I think, 90 something in it yesterday.
Yeah, it was a lot. That Galaxy S, that's me on my phone.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I saw that in the previous meeting and wondered who that was.
It was me. I was testing it out to see if I could, because we don't use Zoom in my district, and so I'm not sure how to share the screen but yet also see everyone's faces.
There's Jennifer. Excuse me, Jennifer Touchstone.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, Lindsay. Good morning, Farrah.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Yay. All right, now I've got people's faces open.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I just got out of the tech tip. Brand new everything.
Your sound's lagging a little bit, Jennifer.
Yeah, I could hardly understand anything.
Yeah.
Well, it might be hard to.
I think that's better.
That was better.
It's better. Let me leave and come back in, and let me see if that might help it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my headphones in, and actually, I really need to listen because
Okay.
Y'all want me to let folks in now since we're close?
Yeah, we can go ahead and start doing that.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. Well, let me know if it gets spotty again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's much better.
Good.
Making sure I've got my phone turned off. Y'all don't hear any feedback or anything when I talk, do you?
I don't. I hear you pretty good.
All
Yeah.
right.
Very clear.
Good. Let me go back in and make sure I'm still logged in to Atlas. I had it open and nope, I'm not. It must time out. I'm excited about this.
Me too.
Hey guys, see a couple of familiar faces from yesterday.
You guys let me know when you want to get started.
Well, you want to go ahead and get started? It's 9:55. What do you think?
Okay.
Ready?
Yep, let's go.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Hello and welcome to your Component 3 session. The presenters today are Lindsey Kilgore and Farrah Kilgo. I'm your panelist today. My name is Jennifer Touchstone, and I'm an NBCT from the Shelby County School District. I'm going to be monitoring the chat today and trying to help answer questions and help the presenters in any way I can. We want this to be an engaging and informative session for you, but you'll have to keep your mics on mute unless your presenters tell you otherwise. But do please keep your cameras on because we want to see your happy, smiling faces. Let's see. If you have any questions, I know you will because you're all smart, inquisitive people. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat box, and I will do my best to answer them. I will be posting a link to today's attendance. If you haven't filled that out yet, please do that. And I'll also post a link to your registration in Power Schools, or I think there's a link to that registration at the bottom of the attendance the attendance form. So if you haven't registered, do that as well. All right, without further ado, I'm going to turn it all over to Farrah and Lindsey, your intrepid leaders.
Great introduction. So thank you so much for joining us today. Lindsey and I are really excited about this opportunity to connect with you guys. We'll just start by some get to know you type things. I certified in early middle childhood literacy in 2008, and then I renewed later in 2018. I currently teach 3rd grade at Atala Elementary School, and here's just some information about me. This is my husband, and I have a son who added a little girl to our family last September. We're so excited about that. I'm also a pet mom, as you can see from all the animal pictures. These are all my animals. A huge nature lover. If you've ever been to Etowah County and visited Nakalula Falls, this is what this is a picture of. And I'm an avid runner. One of those annoying people who post all my running stuff on Facebook and things like that. So that's a little bit about me. And to help you guys participate, feel free, if you make a connection or if you want to put a thumbs up, go ahead and kind of let us know that you're out there. Or, jot a little something in the chat box, and to kind of make it a little bit easier for us to connect.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Lindsey Kilgore. I certified in early adolescence English language arts. That's a mouthful. Early adolescence is ages 11 through 15, so I'm kind of in that middle grade group. I was the first group to certify using the new instructions, and I'll be the first group to renew using those new renewal instructions, which I will start this year. So I'm excited to get those instructions. I think they're going to be released in September. So I'm an instructional specialist for Pelham City Schools. I just started this new position on March 30th. Before that, I was in Tuscaloosa City Schools, and I served on the National Board Leadership Team there. We had a pretty good cohort of a team of, leaders who supported candidates in going through the process and had a big program there. So a little bit about me. I have a son who is almost 11. He'll be going into the 6th grade this year. So I'm a middle school mom. I'm also a single mom. That's why I put that picture in the middle, because it feels like I'm juggling all sorts of things all the time. And I'm a baseball mom. So those are the things right now that define this part of my life. I am mom. So, but I'm happy to be here with you all, and I hope that we can share some good information with you about component 3.
Thanks, Lindsey. So our group norms are just like Melissa had gone over, Dr. Shields earlier today. If you will participate fully, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. We're here for you, and so we value your input. If you have a question, please put it in the chat box for us so that we can address it, because that's the whole reason we're here, is to support you. Keep your camera on as much as possible, because again, that's another way for us to connect with you. And please mute your microphone unless you are the one speaking. So to kind of get us started, we've got a little get to know you poll. It helps us to understand what certificate area, what age groups, what age group of teachers we might be speaking with. If you have the slideshow up already, you can click this link right here. I think Jennifer is also going to post the link in the chat box for us, or you can just go into a new tab and type in this link. I'm going to wait just a second, and then I'll click on it so you can see. Uh-oh, didn't work on here. Let's try again. There.
And the link to that is in the chat. Jennifer just posted
Yay,
it.
thanks, Jennifer. And so if you're just starting the process, you may not know which certificate area you are going to certify in, and that is completely okay. We're just trying to kind of get an idea. Oh, wow. You guys are fast. Faster than I am. That's awesome. Okay, we've got people from all over the board here. Nice. Career tech. Oh, we've got some music. Arts. Wow, just a great variety. So because of that, you'll probably have some content specific questions. Please don't hesitate to throw them out there to us. Okay, so I'm going to head on back to our view. There we go. Okay, so we're kind of big picture people. So we're going to start off with the big picture and then narrow it down to specifics. So component 3 is all about your teaching practice and your learning environment. And basically the gist of the whole thing is that you are proving that you are effective at planning instructional sequences, that you're effective at planning activities, that you have a huge amount of pedagogical knowledge and skills, especially in regards to what best to do for your students at that particular time, and your ability in general to advance student learning. So that's the whole big picture. Oh, there we go. I think Lindsey's going to talk to us a little bit about where it all fits in the whole portfolio.
Yeah, so this is a graphic to represent the percentage of your score for each component. So you can see there, component 1 is, besides component 3, component 1 is weighted the most. You've got your 3 essays, written essays that are 6.7% each, and then the multiple choice, which is 20%. But out of the written components, component 3 is weighted the most at 30%. So it is, you know, some people say, well, this is a lot and it takes a lot of time, and it does, but it's also weighted the most. So do keep that in mind and keep that in perspective as you're going through this, that it does require a lot of work and a lot of time. And, you know, there's videos and writing and reflections and work samples, but it is weighted the most in the final score. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, so where do we start? The first place I tell everybody to start is with their standards. In your portfolio instructions, you are going to see near one of the beginning pages, maybe the back of page 1 or page 2, a list of standards that this component addresses. Now, they're going to be different depending on your certificate area. I pulled these from the middle childhood generalist standards, or component instructions. So they're going to look different probably from yours. But let me just switch over real quick to the document camera so you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. When a lot of people just starting out think when we say standards, we might be talking about Common Core standards, and that's not the case. We're talking about the National Board standards. And so here's my standard 1 for my certificate area, the knowledge of learners. Yours is probably going to be something similarly worded. Everybody has a standard about knowing their students. And my suggestion is to go ahead and you jump in here, Lindsey, read all of those standards and really get a good grasp of them. And you can see that I've taken notes beside mine, underlined what I thought was important. Even over here, I think I put something like look up, because it says current child development theories. And I certified several years ago, so I made a note to myself to look those up to make sure that I'm current. So this is your holy grail of what you're trying to reach to be an accomplished teacher.
And I'll just add, when I would go through and read all of my standards, I would make notes also in the margins about things that I was already doing in my classroom that addressed that particular standard. And just really, it was like a brainstorm for me that kind of got me started on planning for this component and planning for the videos. I would take the time now during the summer to read your standards and mark them up like that. Now is the time to do that and get to know them, because if you know those standards, and they're in your head, you're going to be constantly looking for or recognizing them in your teaching, and that's what you're going to write about. So it's kind of the foundation is really reading your standards and making sure you know them.
Yeah, great advice, Lindsey. That's what I did the whole summer before I even began, is I got those standards under my belt. So another big picture thing, what are you going to do? You kind of got to know where you're going to start this component. So I pulled this from, in my instructions, it says page 4, the second paragraph, but yours might be a little bit different. So if the page numbers don't match up, they might not, depending on your area.
Sorry, Farrah. What is the same though is the heading, what do you need to do? So if you find in your instructions the heading, what do you need to do, or what do I need to do? This is the same. This is going to be the same information.
Yes, thanks, Lindsey. So basically, you're going to be identifying 2 lessons from different instructional units, and we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that later. With those 2 lessons, you're going to be videoing them, and you're going to provide a written commentary with information about how you planned, the materials you chose and why you chose them, even why you chose to video those particular lessons. And here's what's important about them. The green underline is going to be different for every certificate area. This is from my certificate area. It says literacy, reading, language, arts, but yours might say something about mathematics or music, depending on your content area. But everybody is going to show a breadth of content knowledge within their instruction. Different instructional formats. So we'll talk about that, but it's basically whole group, small group, one-on-one, partners, and you'll show different teaching strategies. So if you have your instructions out, you might want to jot little notes or highlight important things, or you can come back to this slideshow and you'll have it handy here for you. So like, for example, if you're a mathematics teacher, for the different instructional units, maybe one lesson comes from your geometry unit and one lesson comes from your fractions unit, but both can't come from geometry. If you're reading language arts, maybe one lesson is from your main idea unit and one lesson is from your unit about setting. So as long as they're different units, not 2 lessons from in the same unit or topic. Okay, so again, the page might be slightly different from you, but we're still under the what do you need to do. The first 3 bullets, everybody's going to do something very similar. So you're going to provide an overview. You're going to tell about the entry in its entirety. You'll have to explain why you've chosen certain things. Now, this red underline will be different depending on your certificates. But basically, you're going to be telling the assessors, here's what my whole entry is about and why I've done this. Then secondly, you're going to be describing your objectives, your goals for the unit. You're going to be demonstrating through your video some instructional techniques and the planning, because even though planning is done prior to, you still demonstrate that planning while you're acting out the actual lesson. I don't know about you guys, I like to plan, very specific, so that when I get in front of my kids, I've already thought about, well, if they say this, then I'll do this. That just helps me. I'm an over planner. You may not be, you don't have to be, don't worry. That's just what works for me. Like was said earlier, 2 different instructional formats, whole group, small group, etc. Different teaching strategies. So if you use a Socratic seminar upper teachers in one lesson, then you might do something different in another lesson. And then this 4th bullet is something that must be seen in your videos. It says provide your analysis. Now that part obviously will be written down, but seeing the students actually learn and develop and you interacting with them needs to be shown in your video. And we're going to show you some examples of those later on, so you'll kind of get a better idea of what it's talking about right there. Lindsey, you got anything to add about that?
Nope.
All right, well, we'll just try. Okay, so here's the next thing. Still thinking big picture. What are you going to submit? You'll have an introduction to entry form. You'll have 2 videos. Don't freak out. It's going to be fine. Everybody gets worried about the videos, but really they're an asset because they allow you to show some things that you couldn't necessarily show with a written word. Then from the 2 videos, think about almost 2 little mini entries because each video is going to have its own instructional context form, instructional planning form with a section where you answer questions and include student work samples, and then a written commentary. So you're basically going to do 2 videos, 2 instructional context forms, 2 instructional planning forms, 2 written commentaries, if that makes sense. And if you're ever unsure, I'm going to switch back to my camera here and show you a handy little, sorry about my mess right there, handy little resource page in your instructions. There is a chart. Here it is. The title of it is Component 3, Electronic Submission at a Glance. Now mine is near the end of my component instructions, and so yours is going to be located in roughly the same place. And it tells you exactly what you're going to submit. This is huge. How many files that is, how long it has to be, and additional information about it. So that's a really good thing to go back and check. Have I finished everything? There's your answer right there. Okay, so you've got kind of a big picture here. So let's do a little check-in here. How are you feeling about component 3 so far? You can click this picture or you can click the link that Jennifer's gonna put in our chat box. Thanks, Jennifer. Mine's taking just a second to load. There it goes. I've hopped on the Bitmoji craze. I don't know if any of you out there have or not. Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely understandable. Most of y'all are going to feel better when you know more. We got a couple feeling good. All right, my warriors. Hopefully after we finish today's session, you'll feel a whole lot better. And remember, we're your tribe. We are here to support you. So anything you need, I know Lindsey probably feels the same way. If we don't answer your questions, shoot us an email after we're done. Or if you get into this and you start reading and you're like, wait, what'd they say about this? Reach out to us because we're here to support you.
I had just this morning, I answered an email from a former colleague who's doing component 4, and she had a bunch of questions, and she shot me an email and I just responded back to her. I really do not mind. Also, just to kind of give you a heads up, at the end of the session today, I'm going to share with you a planning document that is going to help you get all of your thoughts and all of your brainstorms that you've kind of thought about what you could do for this component, get it all out on paper. And I think it's really going to help you focus and get organized. So that is coming in just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great tool. So now we're going to start digging a little bit deeper into the actual nitty gritty. So I've put this little what will you submit a picture of that page in here, just kind of like a roadmap so you know where we come from. So I said you're going to submit an introduction to entry form. This is what it looks like. And you will find that at the back of your component instructions. Here's what's important about this form. The gray box. So there are so many little tiny regulations like 1-inch margins, double space, 11-point Arial. That's a little different on your forms. On your forms, you can see in bold, no more than one single space page. Just in case you forget what the actual instructions say, they've been great and put the instructions to each form on the top of it in this gray box. So that's very handy. This is the one where you're telling the assessor, hey, here's what my entry's all about. You're just going to provide a brief overview of your entire entry. That's big. A lot of people have trouble composing that because you're talking about 2 different lessons from 2 different units. but a little bit of tweaking, it'll come together for you. You're just basically telling them, here's what my entry is about. Number 2, describe the focus of video 1 and your rationale for including it. That's your reason why. Out of all the videos that you've taken, why'd you choose this one to include? What particular things did you or the students do well that you wanted the assessors to see? And then similar question for number 3. So the next thing, and I know this is the thing that people are like, wow, sometimes a little nervous about, are the videos. So, and Lindsey, feel free to jump in here if there's something that I don't put or say. So the videos, yeah, they're scary. I'm gonna go ahead and admit it. I was nervous about how am I gonna look in this outfit? What if I turn my back? Oh, my hair looks like this from the back. They don't care about any of that. They're really looking for evidence of how you interact with your kids and your kids interact with each other. It's your opportunity to showcase the climate, the things in your instruction that just don't translate when you're writing about them. Furthermore, they provide evidence of consistency, and if you write about something in your written commentary and then they also see it in your video, right there's your consistent evidence. So a couple of tips here. Start early. Video anything and everything, even if you think it's horrible, it's fine, because number 1, the kids need to get used to seeing the video camera. I used a video camera for mine. My first go around, it was the VHS, because this was back in the 07-08 school year, and it had a little red blinking light. So I put electrical tape over it so the kids would never know when they're being recorded, because they just couldn't seem to handle it. Do lots and lots of videos. It'll get you used to it, the kids used to it, and you'll start to see stuff like, like I noticed for myself, I tug on my clothes a lot while I'm teaching. I wouldn't realize that if I hadn't watched myself teaching. So your videos, and we're going to talk more about this in a second, you have 2 allowable edits, but I'm going to caution you about that. We're going to see what those edits are in just a second. You're going to video lessons in different formats. So a small group lesson, a whole group lesson, maybe you've got partners working together. Let me move on a little bit from there. There we go. Okay, yeah. So when you're recording your videos, this is a section, I'm not sure what page number that's on in yours. Mine is page 8 and 9. Just telling you again, 2 different lessons from 2 different units of instruction. And you can't start a video, say on Monday, pause it, and then start it again on Tuesday. So that's an important thing to know. And here's another biggie. A lot of people want to say, well, do my videos have to be similar? No, they should be varied. In fact, they should be independent. We should be able to watch one of your videos and see evidence of accomplished teaching all by itself. And part of the good thing about having variation in your videos is that it allows you to showcase maybe things in one video that you weren't able to showcase in another video. So more evidence of accomplished teaching.
And I want to add there too, your videos can be 15 minutes long. Well, instead of thinking about what 15 minutes you're going to video, I suggest videoing your entire lesson and then picking out the 15 minutes that you feel like showcases the best teaching and the best kind of variety of your teaching. So do think about that. You might want to record just the whole lesson, several lessons, and then pick the 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually how I did it. My best friend who certified the year after I did, she went through and she just watched and was like, I'm going to start it here and end it here. She just felt like that was the best 15 minutes that showed her evidence. I'm a little bit more type A, and I actually made a transcript of my video and checked off all of I had made a list of features I was looking for. And so I checked off every time I saw them and chose the 15 minutes that had the most of those. Whatever way works for you, this is your component. It's your portfolio. So as long as you're choosing the part that you feel like showcases the most standards, then you're good to go. You can use the same class of students. This is for departmentalized teachers, or you might video class A in the morning and class B in the afternoon. So that's nice that they've got some flexibility there. Okay, so here's also some cautionary things. If you're in your portfolio instructions, you might want to jot some of this stuff down. Show as much of your class as possible. You can focus on one student or a small group of students at a time, and that's great because you're going to need to kind of get in there and hear what they're saying and see the work that they're doing. But they do want to see most of your class, and that follows right along with they want to see you too. Sad story about a potential candidate who had a fabulous video, but only her arm was showing in the video. So she had to redo that. It wasn't acceptable. She wasn't able to submit that because the assessors couldn't see her face. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're visible. Sound is super important. So make sure that you are able to be heard in the video and the students are able to be heard. When I was going through this, I had an external microphone, and on one of my videos, I didn't have it plugged in all the way. And so I couldn't use that because it was just, as you just see us moving around, no sounds. I had another candidate that I watched her video, and it looked like an amazing lesson, but there was no sound, or even in the parts where there was sound, it was so muffled that we couldn't make out what they were saying. So these are all good reasons to start videoing early. You can work out all those kinks. Another big deal is National Board has a permission sheet that you have to send home when you start your portfolio. You have to have that signed and returned if you're going to include a student's voice or image. So if maybe you've got a class where one parent says no, they can't be included. Well, they can still participate in the lesson just off camera. They can't be heard or they can't be seen. So I would suggest, I'm going to say get that done ASAP, because I had a candidate a couple of years ago who went through the whole component 3 and did not get the forms right off at the beginning. Well, when it was time to submit, one parent would not give permission. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to use the videos that she had taken. So get that form out super early.
Hey, Farrah?
Yes.
We had a question about how you created a transcript for your video.
Oh, just the long way. I would watch a clip and then I would type out what I said and what the kids said.
Okay.
Probably way more work.
I don't know this for sure, but I'm feeling like maybe YouTube, you can enable captioning and it might do it for you, possibly. Don't quote me on that, but that might be something to look into.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
And we've also had some questions about what you use to record. I can speak to that, and then Farrah chime in. I used just an iPad on a swivel. If you're not familiar with a swivel, it is a kind of like a robot that you can connect your device to, and you hold a sensor and it moves with you as you move around the room. So if your district has that, that is an option. Some people have found that the quality on their cell phones or iPads are not as great. I did not have any problem with that. I've heard of people using their cell phones to record and actually having another person come into the room and holding that device and recording them. So that is an option. Farrah, what about you?
Yeah, similar things to what you were going to say. My first time around, my husband came in and did my videoing for me. My best friend had a student who was super ADHD, and so she put him to video, and that was the most focused that he had been, in any other lesson. Did a fabulous job, and then learned a lot as well. So maybe you've got that one student you're worried about on your video. Let them try to video.
Or the student who didn't return their release form, you know,
Yeah.
you can put them behind the camera.
Yeah.
Also, we're kind of, while we're still talking about videos and what you're recording, different instructional formats and different teaching strategies. I used whole group for one of my videos, small group for another one. One strategy that I used during my whole group video was using a Padlet to have students answer questions and share. And I talked about student engagement and how that using the Padlet really increased their engagement because they were so tech savvy and so interested in technology. So that's one example of what I did. Farrah, you want to speak to that too?
Yeah, I was actually going to see if everybody would mind dropping in their favorite instructional strategies. So, and I can post this to the board later too, the little sticky board. There is a document out there called, I think it's called Strategic Lesson Planning or something like that. And it has a list of about 50 engagement strategies. There are things like carousels, pass and rights, turn and talk, say something, and they tell you the title of the strategy and then give you a little blurb about how to implement in your classroom. So I'm going to make a note to include that, a link to that document.
And what I would say, before you choose an instructional strategy, get to know your students and what is it that they need. You know, if I chose to do the Padlet because I was in a 6th grade class where, you know, that is usually the time where a lot of them were getting cell phones and they were just real into, you know, being able to have a device in class. And so I knew that that would keep them engaged. So that's why I chose that. And you will need to talk about that in your component about why you chose certain strategies. So make sure that you know your students and know that their interests and their characteristics and their developmental levels so that you can choose strategies that meet their needs. That's going to be important for you in your component to talk about.
Yes, exactly. We had a question about recording Zoom sessions due to COVID-19. There are some specific instructions. Now, do we have the link to that, Jennifer, in that document? There is a link. I don't know if I have it up here or not. The National Board has put out some specific instructions for how to deal with that. I don't have the link, but we can post that later.
Farrah, I'll dig around and see if I can find it and post it when I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So,
the thing about national boards, everything is intentional. So everything that you do with your students has a reason behind it. There's got to be intention in what you do. And that's what you're trying to show in your writing and in your video, is that you've thought about this, you've gathered information, and your actions are a reflection of, you know, the work and the data that you've collected. So keep that in mind.
yes, that great word for this. Okay, so then the next question is usually, well, what class do I choose? If you're a self-contained teacher, well, that class is chosen for you. But it can be the same class if you're departmentalized or a different class. If it were me, I'd probably choose the class, not necessarily with the best behavior, but the ones that I knew that I was going to be my best with and that they are going to respond well to me and that I can show the most learning. I can showcase my skills. It has to be a rostered class that meets during the school day and the school year. So that means you can't have an after-school tutoring club or something to that effect and count them for your videos. That won't work. That won't be accepted. Carefully choose your class too based on your certificate's age range. So I think my certificate age range is maybe age 3 to 12 or something like that. Check yours, it's in your instruction. You wouldn't want to do all of this work and then, you know, have a non-scorable or something because the students are too old or too young. That usually gets iffy around your age, doesn't it, Lindsey? 6th grade?
Yeah. I was about to say, I can speak to that a little bit. My background is early childhood elementary, so that's what my bachelor's and master's degree was in. But I taught 6th grade ELA for so long, and I knew the content so well that I was confident in getting certified in English language arts from ages 11 to 15. So that was, even though my degree was not in that, that's what I was most comfortable with, because 11 to 15, my kids were starting out right at 11, and I constantly was challenging them, and so the age did not scare me that much. But that is something that you want to think about. If you're teaching 6th grade and you're more confident going younger than that, then you might consider a generalist, or just look at all the different options that you have, and I would suggest choosing the one that you are the most comfortable with.
Great advice. And I was just answering a few of these questions in the chat box. Laura, I think you can do that. And that number is supposed to be 1-800-22-TEACH. But she was wanting to know if she could use one video if she's at 2 schools, one from one school, one from the other. I think that's acceptable, but honestly, I'm not sure. So you might want to just call them to make certain.
Farrah, I wanted to add in the general portfolio instructions from National Board. If you look on page 42, it gives you a description of what they're looking for when you film a virtual lesson.
Ooh, great. Thank you so much. Page 42 of the general portfolio instructions. Perfect. So they're going to be looking at your practice, your ability to move students forward and have students learn. They're not looking to see that students have grown an exponential amount. It's not about their achievement, it's about your ability to help students achieve. So selecting a lesson, they're going to be looking in your video that you've established a safe, fair, equitable, and challenging environment. So these are things, like I said, you can say these in your written commentary, but you can actually observe them in a video. So before we go too far into this, let's just do a quick little message in the chat box, if you don't mind. What's the difference between fair and equitable? Crickets. So there's an opportunity for learning. Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yes, thank you for your contributions. I'm going to show you too, every person has a standard. Whatever your component or whatever your certification area is, you have a standard for equity, fairness, and diversity. So I would definitely suggest poring over this, because especially in our day and time today, let's just make sure that we're pretty well versed with what this means and that we're able to show this in our videos. Equitable is allotting all an opportunity. Yes, that's a great one. Thank you, guys. So these in the green box, these are things that you're going to be needing to show in your video. Go ahead and be planning ahead if you're thinking about what lessons you can video, and decide, how could I show this? How could somebody watching see that I've created a safe environment? Safe not just physically, but also emotionally or social emotional. How could someone see evidence that I'm equitable, or that I'm fair, or that I've created an environment that's student-centered? You might want to just start making some notes as you read over it later. What are some things you already do to do that? And I'll jump in, I'll tell you a little story. When I was renewing I was the reading coach at a local school, and I was in her class pretty much most of the day because it was the only third grade class, and that's the year the coaches were spending 80% of our time in third grade. And so I was renewing, and we were teaching a lesson about writing written responses. And so I had taught them how to use a rubric and shown them different levels of student responses, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And when the level 1 response popped up on the board, a couple of the kids kind of started giggling and said, oh, they did horrible. Well, right, this was not part of my plan. This wasn't in my script, but just right there, I was like, no, that's not how we handle that. You don't know, this might have been someone's best effort. Now, it wasn't anybody we knew. I pulled these off of some document somewhere, but just reiterating to the children that no, we don't make fun of someone's best work. That could have been their very best. That moment is actually what made me decide to use that particular video segment, because I knew that that was a great example of creating a safe environment for everyone. So just to kind of think through things you might say, things you might do. Anything to add? Oh, the ones that are not in the green box, those are going to be a little bit different. That's why I didn't put that up here for each certificate area. But these are the things they're looking for in your video. Lindsey, anything about that you want to add?
No, I think you covered it.
Awesome. Okay, so now the video editing. I told you earlier that we were going to get to this. The first year they allowed edits. Apparently there were just edits for all kinds of stuff. And so the next year, the National Board revised what they allowed for edits. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. If it were me, I doubt that I would have any edits in my video. Just because simply you have to explain why you have an edit later in one of your forms. But there are only certain reasons you can have them, and that is physically moving from your classroom to somewhere else, like a gymnasium, or if you have a safety drill, or if you need to change the battery in your video camera. So very specific reasons. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this already, tips for selecting your video. Definitely know your standards, know them inside and out. Maybe make a list of the stuff that from the standards that are assessed on this particular component. Make a list of the main things that you want to make sure you've covered in your video, and you might even check them every time you watch your video. Oh, well, I've got standard 1 in there 5 times, but I only have standard 2 1 time. This might not be the right segment. Read the written commentary questions ahead of time. We're going to show you those in a little bit, but if you it helps you plan backwards. If you know what you're going to have to write about, then you know a little bit about what you need to include in your video. Of course, that third bullet really goes without saying. And then we talked about how to select the segments that would be best to showcase your ability. This is not a dog and pony show. This isn't the time when 15 people are coming in to watch your lesson and you want everything to go perfect. And let me tell you why. My first, when I went through the first time and I was certifying, I videoed a lesson and I wound up using this lesson, but right in the middle of it, it was at a small group table and I had the camera over here. Wait, can y'all see me off screen? Okay, I had the camera to my right, a student to my left. And I turned to the right to say something to one of my students. And lo and behold, the kid on the left looked at the camera and went, and I didn't know it until after I got home and watched it. But I certified anyway. Kids are going to be kids. Kids are going to do stuff. They might drop, ugly words. They're going to say things. And that's an opportunity. If that happens to you and this is your best evidence that you need to submit, write about it. Just explain it in your written commentary. Kids are kids, not a dog and pony. You'll see that in just a little bit in some of the videos that we watch. Lindsey?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so I think I meant to, I wonder if that's the most recent one because I had another slide before that. I'm going to pull this up again if you guys will be patient with me for a second because we're about to go into a breakout room. This is a lot of information and I don't know about you guys, but I know when I'm learning a lot of stuff all at once, I need a second just to let it sink in, to talk to people about it, to maybe clarify a bit. So we're fixing to go into a breakout room. And what I'd like for you to do when you're in there is talk about what do you think is important for videoing? What are some takeaways that you had about the videos? What worries or concerns do you still have about videoing? Let's see, maybe I have it here. Yes, good.
And I just copied the questions into the chat.
Yay!
Guys, if y'all will go ahead and either snap a picture of them right there in the chat or copy them. Because when you go into your room, you will not be able to see those in this group chat. So go ahead and take a picture of the slide that Farrah's got pulled up, or take a picture of the questions I posted, or just highlight and copy them. Or if you have the presentation pulled up in another tab, you can use that also.
Sure, sure. I think my internet's moving just a little bit slow. Maybe if I stop sharing, it'll try now. Okay, here we go. Breakout.
Hey, Farrah.
Hey.
So I can click down here on breakout rooms. It's
Yeah.
set on to a breakout room, so it doesn't look like it's going to let me visit each one. But that's okay. I've got to run to the restroom, so.
I know, I'm just checking my Atlas to make sure that I'm still logged in and I've got those videos pulled out.
Okay, let's see.
I don't know about you. Usually at this point, they're like, "Brr."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going well though, but it's a lot of information and they do need time to kind of debrief for a second. So I think it's good. All right, I'm gonna stop my video and mute, and I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay, let's see. I'm back, but I'm not sure about everybody else. We'll give everybody a little bit of time to get back.
We've got 32 back in here, so I think we're close.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Did I join in during a break?
Well, they were in breakout rooms, so that was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. I wanted to try to visit a little everybody.
Yeah, welcome.
Sure. So do you want to give a little blurb about video? And we've just talked about the requirements, and we are about to watch a couple of accomplished videos from Atlas. So you want to throw in anything for us?
I'm sure you guys have nailed it. So anything I would have said, I'm sure you've already said better. So no, just everybody, the video is just the stressor, you know. It's just seeing yourself and hearing yourself. Like I refuse to watch any of these videos re-recorded for that reason.
I definitely understand. One thing that we talked about in my breakout room was making sure that there's a lot of student discourse, student to student interaction.
Yeah.
Not a lot of teacher talk. You know, sometimes they like to be the sage on the stage. So,
yeah. And that's the wait time is what I say when people are videoing, and you can see them willing like the kids to like say something. So that's why it's good to have a lot of structures in place when you're doing those kind of activities, so that the kids kind of know what's expected. But yeah, and then, you know, I know you already hit that, but like this doesn't have to be Steven Spielberg. It can be you know, running to the front of your classroom and putting your iPhone, you know, and then running back to the back and teaching. You know, that they expect that. Now that's one thing I love about Atlas, is because you see teachers do that. You're like, okay, well that makes me feel better. That's what my video looked like.
Yeah, and that's our whole purpose right now, is we're about to watch a few
Look
clips
at that.
from Atlas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually by now people are kind of stressed and thinking about, oh no, what am I going to look like? What am I going to sound like? What will I do? But this will really take it home to you and make you feel like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yes. Yep.
And you can. So the first video that I'm going to share with you guys, and first, please let me know if the sound doesn't work and I need to redo something. This is an elementary teacher, I think 5th or 6th grade, and she is teaching about fractured fairy tales. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but there's a few clips of it that I want to show you.
And before you start that, Farrah, Farrah's got Atlas pulled up. These are actual videos that were submitted for teachers getting their national board certification. They are videos from the previous process. So keep that in mind. You're not going to want to use these and the examples of the writing as guides for what you will turn in. But the videos do show good instructional strategies and just kind of the various different formats that you can take. And then one more thing about the videos before I forget to say it. Do not try to plan out, you know, everything that's going to happen in your video. So in other words, don't try to, you know, coach your kids on what to say in response to your prompt. You know, let it flow and let it be natural, because then you're going to have all kinds of stuff to talk about that you might not necessarily have thought of before. So just, I would say, like, relax and get in your classroom and do what you do best every single day.
Perfect. Great advice, Lindsay. So you're going to see in a second that this video just starts in a random, I think, mid-sentence. That is okay. You just clip your video, make sure that it's the 15 minutes, no more. And it's all right if you're starting in the middle of a sentence. So here we go. Oh, please. Yeah.
Well, yeah, listen to your peers. Don't let people take you somewhere, and be careful who you talk to.
Be careful who you talk to. And finally, Nathan, how about you? You have something to add? There's a lot of walking around this, but who is it that you shouldn't be talking to, Nathan? Wolfberry, because Wolfberry is what? Can't hear you. He's a bad guy, but she doesn't know that he's a bad guy. But what is he to her? What does she know he is? What is he? Elijah, what is he? A stranger. He's a stranger. Don't talk to strangers. Okay. So I don't want to take up your working time. I need you to get to work right away. Did you have something to add? Oh, I see. All right. Shanawaz, what did you want to add?
It wasn't really his belongings, but I was gonna say don't give strangers your belongings because he let Wolfberry get the book.
Don't give okay, if you don't know someone, you shouldn't give them things. Riley?
Well, I was gonna say I have noticed that the librarian wasn't in the book.
You're right, because the librarian does come after the falling action. And if the librarian comes after the falling action, just as grandmother was saying, in this case, because it's a twisted tale, it's a twisted fairy tale, the answer is that the librarian doesn't get eaten by the wolf, doesn't get pushed over by the wolf, but the librarian gets back the what? Rebecca?
The librarian
gets the book, the librarian.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it here just to point out, notice how she is eliciting responses from the students. You saw right now teacher to student interaction, which is important, but her questioning techniques and the way that she interacts with her kids, this is huge. So, and this is something that you probably all are already doing. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit into the video to let you see some more segments.
How would you figure that out? How did you figure it out? If you're putting it from the father's point of view, but you're telling this whole story from the father's point of view, how does that make Hansel and Gretel a fractured fairy tale?
Well, because it had said that the mother had died, so maybe they could tell how the mother had died and more details about that.
Okay.
And when Hansel and Gretel gets back with all the jewels from the candy house with the witch, because in this book he wasn't all surprised because he was probably not surprised. He can put it like us. He can be a surprise.
He can. Oh, so you're going to take the story all the way through normally, but then change it instead of the stepmother to the father.
Well, no.
So who's the bad guy?
Who's the witch?
The witch is still the bad guy.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Michelle?
Well, I think I agree with everything that Riley said. It's just that I want them to switch places. So instead of Hansel getting eaten, I want Gretel getting eaten. So it'd be like Gretel and Hansel.
Okay, so there's going to be throwing back to what Lindsey said earlier, you can't anticipate everything that your kids are going to do, and that's okay. You are showcasing how you respond to kids, how if they're off track, what do you do to bring them back and to further their learning? And she's got some really good examples of this a little further on here. Let me get there for you.
Yes. So what you can do. Nathan. Okay, so you ready for your fractured math? Let me ask you a question. What did you come up with for your twist? Okay, explain that a little bit more to me, because if the story is already about the tortoise and the hare, you change it to the tortoise versus the hare. Is that changing the story? No, aren't we supposed to be twisting it, changing it? Okay, so how can we do that to twist it? And remember, when we talked about all the different versions of Cinderella, it wasn't that they were in different, it wasn't the fact that they were in different cultures and each culture is reflected within the Cinderella book. It was when we changed it to, when we looked at the book called The Iris.
Okay, so what I love about that is notice how her questioning techniques scaffold the students' learning. Before we look at the next video, let me go back to present here. If you don't mind, drop a little something in the chat box about what you saw in the video that was like, oh, okay, this makes sense to me. I liked how this is a real classroom. You know, you hear the noise in the background, the other kids are working. Right at the beginning of the video, one of the kids is kind of slouched down a little bit. That's real. This isn't make believe and put on. Yeah, what she's doing is what we do every day. Exactly. Can you have their faces? I don't think so. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So it does make it seem like, hey, we can do this. You are capable of doing this. So in our next Atlas video, Lindsey, chime in here too. I think same thing we're looking at, but definitely look at how the teacher interacts with the students, how the students interact with each other, and the questioning techniques that the teacher uses throughout.
I just wanted to point one thing out too. In that other video, you saw, I think one of the kids said like, die, 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 stupid bear or something. I don't know if you saw the close or the caption on that, but that would be a perfect example for you to write about how you address that to create a safer environment for your students. So when things like that happen, think about what you do things automatically all day long that you probably don't even realize you're doing to create these good environments for your kids. And that's kind of what you got to do with this component, is you got to identify those little decisions that you make all day long, and the why behind you made the decision, because you're likely doing all these things anyway. It's kind of identifying what those things are. So use those silly little things that they say to demonstrate how you handled it in a good manner.
Yeah, absolutely. So this video, and I apologize for all the language arts ones, but I was able to identify really good teaching in these. So when you get Atlas access, and you can have that, just contact your regional in-service center director, and they can set you up with Atlas, because it's an invaluable resource for you. This, I think, is a third grade teacher, and they are doing a sequencing chart. So we're going to jump in about minute 2, because the first minute
desks are arranged in groups to foster students when answering higher order thinking questions.
There we go.
Next, it is winter. The tiny seed gently falls to the ground. Then it is spring, and the seed begins to grow. He grows roots, a stem, and leaves. He is now a plant. After that, it is summer. The sun and the rain help the plant develop a bud and then a flower. People from all around look at the beautiful flower. In addition, birds, bees, and butterflies come to visit the big, beautiful flower. Finally, it is autumn again. The flower begins to lose its leaves, and its seeds are carried away by the wind. Right now, I want you to think about whether we have these events in the correct sequence. I want you to pair up at your table and defend your answer. Why do you think we're right or incorrect?
Defend. Nice. Okay, so one thing I know, yes, the physical movement, that's great. I love that she used the word justify too. These are young children, and they can learn what these words mean. Turning and talking, that's one of the strategies. So I'm going to skip a little bit here. You saw she's doing whole group right now. She switches over to small group pretty soon. Let's see, maybe about right here.
It's just one right here. I think it is winter, the apple tree is brown and bare, and I think that is first. Because it says that in the book.
Okay, so now I'm going to skip over to another section. Yes, lots of student discourse, and that's one of the biggies that they're looking for. Let's see, about right here.
And after we do that, I think the fifth one after that, the flower bud opened, the tree is covered in blossoms. The flower buds and you know your last event, discussing and using your book for support of the sequence of your story. A tree that grows the best part of apple pie. And what was your second event? First, it is winter. The apple tree is brown and bare. How did you make the decision to put that as your second event, Paris? And the book, and that came after what you had just said about the characters for your first event, correct? Third event.
Okay, so real world classrooms, real world examples here. And lots of great thoughts in the chat box. Somebody's question I was just answering was they noticed that the camera wasn't always focused on the teacher, and that is okay because you also want to get the student-to-student interaction, and if you want to do that, take the camera off of yourself just a little, that's fine, but make sure that you are seen in the video. I'd say at least several times. What do you think, Lindsey?
Yeah, I actually was kind of torn about that because I used the swivel, so it followed me everywhere I went. But I was interacting with students, so I don't actually know the right answer to that. I think for me, it's most important for them to see you and how you support students' learning. So you do want to see the discourse between students and see their learning, you know, live like that. But I think you need to be somewhere close by, you know, facilitating the learning.
I'm in agreement with that. So now that we've seen actual videos taking place, and hopefully that gives us some ahas and some, yay, I can do this. I do this already. Let's go back into our breakout rooms and just take a few minutes to talk about what stood out to you. What are you thinking about it now? And also in our new world of COVID-19, what things might we need to consider if we're doing a virtual instruction video? So I'll give you a second to take a snapshot of those. They're pretty much similar to last breakout rooms questions.
I put them in the chat too if you'd rather.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go. We'll spend about 5 minutes. Hey, Lindsey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, I'm fixing to run to the restroom now.
Okay, I'll stay here and
Thank you.
yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Let's see, we've got, what, about 40, 50 minutes left. I think we're doing okay on time. You think?
I think we're doing good. I do want to give them some time for questions at the end, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, if we finish a few minutes early, I'd rather do that than go over.
Yeah, let's make sure to do that. Okay, how long have we been in breakout rooms? You think it's time to come back?
I'd give them about 1 more minute.
All right.
Uh-oh, Tish didn't make it to her breakout room.
Where's that? I wonder if she logged out, or it's probably too late now.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot better at Zoom.
Hey, you are like a rock star.
You should have seen me yesterday. I would be like, okay, I don't know how to see the chat box. Like, this is being recorded.
I know that like you're like switching to your document camera and your computer screen. Like you're doing great. So I'm glad you're on in the driver's seat for this.
Yesterday's session helped a lot when learning some of this.
I bet. I don't know that I'll ever get used to it. I do not like presenting this way.
I've actually really enjoyed it.
It's just hard for me. I like to see faces and I like to walk around the room and, you know.
That's why I have it opened in my phone too, so that I'm trolling through. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at people's faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I want to read, you know, like you can tell when you're saying something, if they're not getting it, you know, you can.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see. Looks like we got
30 folks back.
Virginia, nice background. That's pretty. Okay, so welcome back from the breakout rooms, guys. So that's probably the most stressful part for everybody is the videos. Hopefully after some debriefing and seeing some things in context, that'll really make you feel a little bit better about your videos. So we're going to move right on along. Here again is what you have to have for each video, and that is embedded here in the what you will submit section. So we are here. I don't know, can y'all see my mouse?
Yes,
okay.
You can. Or I can.
Okay, so for each video, we will have to have these 5 things. So you're doing them 2 times. Instructional context sheet, which we're about to look at, instructional planning form, instructional planning description, instructional materials, and a written commentary. So this is what your instructional context sheet looks like. Again, it's in the form section in the back of your instructions, and it's got this handy little gray box here with your instructions in case you forget what you're supposed to do there. It has a bracket here for which video, so that'll help you remember, oh, I've got to do one for video 1 and for video 2. These you just type into and save. So let me switch over to my camera real quick. I'm going to show you what mine looks like. Now, I'm a note taker. You can see, sorry about all the chicken scratch, but feel free. If you've got yours printed off, jot down some notes on it, because in about a week or a month or 2 months, when you look back at this again, if it's me, I'm going, wait, what did they say about this? So the notes help me out. The biggest thing to remember is that on question number 1, they're talking about your school. And on question number 2, they're asking about you, your particular class that you are showing in the video. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. I like, let's see, oh, there's another note. Be careful to check your age requirements here, like we discussed earlier. Question number 6, describe the relevant characteristics of the class. This is your time to be general, because as you can see, most of your form is already taken up with their prompts. So you don't have a lot of space to write here. So I suggest, and Lindsey, you might chime in here, you might have a different idea, but I usually tell my candidates they might want to be general here and then more specific later on in the written commentary questions when they're explaining. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, it does. And honestly, I think this form I went back and added to and changed several times throughout the process. So you do want to make sure that this form aligns with what you do write in your written commentary too. So like on number 6 where it says describe the relevant characteristics of this class, whatever you put there, you might want to mention in your written commentary. So you say, because I know that I have a large population of ESL students, I did this. And so whatever you put on this sheet, you know, it's not just to turn in, it does need to be aligned to what you say in your written commentary.
Yes, perfect. That's great advice. Because I've seen sometimes where my candidates will just put everything imaginable in here, but then it doesn't necessarily connect, and you want it to connect. Let's see, I went small screen, and I might as well just keep it big because here's the next thing that you're going to be doing. Right on the next page, the instructional planning form. Now, you can see that it has 3 different parts to it, and this is where sometimes people get stumped. They're like, wait a minute, what? All this is part of a form? Yeah. So first you have to tell what video you're talking about, and then you tell what unit of instruction. Think about, this is not a unit like the college unit where you created 10 lessons, all part of, this is more like a topic. Maybe your unit of instruction is genetics. This doesn't have to be a huge, you know, sentence after sentence after sentence. Just give an overall picture so that the assessors will know what they're looking for and what the video, kind of setting them up to watch the video. You've got a place where you tell about your goals for the whole entire unit and the goals just for the lesson. So kind of starting big, bringing it back small.
Another thing to mention here on this form, it's the same way. In your written commentary, is this the instructional planning? Yeah.
Yes.
In your writing about planning, they're going to ask you why you chose those goals. They're going to ask you in your written commentary how you show that you're working towards those goals. So whatever goals you put on here, you're going to want to reference them in your writing, in your written commentary. One of my goals was students would speak politely to their classmates. You can see that in the video on, you know, kind of like that. So you just want to make sure that it's all aligned and it's all connected.
Yes, yes. So you're going to indicate what type of video it is, whole group, small group, one-on-one, partners. Describe your materials. This isn't necessarily the place to justify your reasoning because like Lindsey said, you're fixing to answer those questions. And then if you have edits in your video, here's where you would write about those edits. So let me switch back here real quick so that I can show you what Lindsey's talking about, because as part of this form, you also have to answer writing about planning questions. Now these are in a different location in your instructions. Mine are on page 5. Wherever yours are, if I were you, I would suggest finding that page and writing that page number as a little blurb right up here so that when you fill out the form, then you'll go, oh yeah, I've got to go back to those questions on page 7 or whatever. And this is going to be similar. Well, this is part of that form. You're answering all of these questions about your planning. Great place to start before you even really start videoing, looking at these questions, because then you know, oh, here's what I need to include. Okay, also part of that same form, you're going to include instructional materials. Now, instructional materials can be whatever you decide that they are. In the first video that we watched, instructional materials for that teacher were the graphic organizer, probably the book, the original book they had read, the whatever kind of interactive whiteboard she was using. So think through what you're going to use and what you might show the assessors that you have used. Lesson plans, handouts, pictures, anything that you use in your lesson that you can feature here. This is what you're going to do. You have some formatting specifications when you are showing or sharing your instructional materials, and they are, I'm looking for my page number. Well, if you look at your electronic submission at a glance, you'll see that they're on there too, so that'll help you out. Let's see, let's answer some of these questions. Yes, you are doing that on the form. So you'll answer the form question and then you'll go to the next page because it's a Microsoft Word document and you will answer questions.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But there's the instructional planning form, right, that you fill out, but then there's additional writing about planning.
Yes,
so
that's
two separate forms. So yes, you will write on that form, but then you will also answer those prompt questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna just double check my components to make sure I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, I know that let me go back to the camera.
So Courtney, you have two sets of writing prompts. One is going to be the prompts where you're writing about how you planned for this video or how you planned this lesson. And then the written commentary is a separate set of writing prompts. And that is where you're going to be writing about the video.
Yeah, we haven't discussed the written commentary yet. This is something different.
It is confusing though, because this is a lot. But if you look at that at a glance page, that kind of lays it out for you too.
Yeah, and I'll show you here too on my instructions. So here in a total separate place are the writing about planning section questions. So these are the questions, if this is my certificate area, that I am going to answer as part of that form.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on the form, but you answer the form, you go to the next page, and then you answer these questions.
So it's one document. It's your planning form first, and then the next 2 pages are your responses to those questions.
Yeah, and they're hidden. Yeah, and then later, totally later, in a whole different section, you have a written commentary.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about those in just a second. But yeah, it is confusing because you have so many different pieces to this one form. Mm-hmm. You've got these questions, you've got those questions that I just showed you, and then you also have your instructional material all in one file.
So that it could be potentially 6 pages.
Does that make sense? Yes, it all needs to be in one file, that section right there. Okay, great. Okay, so, go ahead.
Sarah, Amber was asking about using copyrighted materials. Is that something that you might address or have any advice on?
Yeah, I would just say don't use copyrighted materials. Create your own. What do you think about that, Amber? Wait. Lindsay, do you have something else to add to that?
I'm sorry, I was reading questions in the chat. Say that again.
Yeah, in general, I discourage people from using anything copyrighted. Now, there have been some occasions, like I had a math teacher one time, she had to use the laying the foundation materials for her lesson that she had been given. She did not create those, but she was able to include those as part of her instructional materials. She just took it, they were task cards, and she took a picture of them, and that was okay. We even called to check the 1-800-22-TEACH number, and they said that will be okay. But I just try to discourage people from using copyright just to be safe.
Yeah, and there's some instances where you have to.
Right.
And I mean, I've looked at components for people that have, and you will describe it on your instructional materials pages, which are those 3 pages of evidence or documents. So you will describe it, you know, what it is on that page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so copyrighted materials are, and I know we get this question a lot, things from teachers pay teachers. Yeah, I would consider that to be copyrighted. I make most of my materials. Yeah, and if you want to just be certain and sure, definitely try that number 1-800-22-TEACH and just call and ask them, because they can give you specific answers to your questions regarding things like that. So your instructional materials, you're allowed 3 pages of those for each video. These are just another way for the assessors to see inside your classroom. So it's a way for you to showcase your skill. That's why I encourage people to use their own materials, because, like, for example, one of my candidates wrote a lesson plan, and we might not think about a lesson plan as an instructional material, but it was so phenomenal, and it gave her an opportunity to have justifications for why she planned. I'll show you an example of it in a little bit. And so it was kind of another way to say, okay, look here, I'm showing myself as an accomplished teacher by this. Okay, so now that we've talked about instructional materials, if you don't mind, this is a little Padlet here. So click on the link or go to the link in the chat box, and let's just drop some ideas about some different instructional materials, things you might be thinking about submitting. It's taking a second. There it goes. Yeah, so I went ahead on here and put student copies of a graphic organizer. That's a great instructional material.
Farrah, I put the link to session 2's Padlet in the chat box. Do you want me to go back and put session 1's?
Yeah, do you mind?
I don't mind. Let me put that link in there.
No problem. Well, while we're doing that, I'll go ahead and tell you that something in our component 4 session that we talked about that it applies here too is people want to know for your instructional materials. Do you, if it's a worksheet, do you submit the blank worksheet or one with student writing on it? And so I'll ask you another question to answer that. Which one do you think is going to show the most evidence that you're a proficient teacher and that your students are learning? Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, the student one. Definitely, Virginia.
And guys, if we missed one of your questions in the chat, I know we got a lot of questions right there in a short amount of time. So if we missed your question and didn't answer it, feel free to put it in there again or unmute yourself and ask us. Just want to make sure we get everybody's answered.
Yeah. Oh, I love the one-pager. Yeah, that'd be great, Renee. Yeah, student reflection. That's good. You could do your handouts. If you have a slideshow, you could do pictures of your slideshow. Not any more than 6 per page. Pictures of students completing activities. Again, no more than 6 per page. Yeah, lab reports would be good. Now we got some ideas flowing.
Student work.
Yes, good one. Yeah, the projects. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to hop on back to our presentation because in the next few slides, there are some examples. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, so I tried to label them based on the certificate, and I tried to include just a lot of variety here for you guys to get some ideas. So this is simply a picture of students' work, so that's kind of cool right there. And you can see that they've got a little caption under the picture. That's okay, but don't write a novel. A little caption is okay. Here's some EC Gen. Looks like math over here. So these are student work samples. And like we said earlier, this is going to show so much more evidence having the students writing on it. Oh, and here's something to note. See how the last names are blacked out? I don't know if we mentioned that or not, but for anonymity, you'll want to make sure we've got first names only there. I will say about this picture of the anchor chart, I think that would almost be a better bit of evidence if the students had written on it, but it's still fine. Looks like these kids are doing some sort of science project. There's some social studies. I know sometimes social studies feel like you get left out some of our examples. So here we go there. That's a letter that they had written during a project. Here's the lesson plan that I was telling you about that one of my candidates, who's now an NBCT, used. And so she laid out what the steps in her lessons were, or lesson was, and then over here she justified why she did that step. So that's something you do in your written commentary later, but if you could get it in here, that's great. Yeah, put your candidate ID number on each page. Don't you agree, Lindsey?
Yes, I do. I think you have to put it in the header maybe.
Yeah, even if it doesn't say to on the form or something, still stick it on there. So that brings us to the written commentary. And so this is the last little bit of what is required for each video. So you're going to do 2 written commentaries, one for video 1, one for video 2. And these are the questions that you will be answering. So go ahead and start looking at those questions and be thinking about, okay, after I do my video, I'm going to have to write about this. You can't do any of the writing here until you have your videos done. And I'm just going to address this first bullet. We won't talk about every question, but this first bullet, how did the pedagogical and instructional decisions you made during the lesson align with your planning? That's a tricky one for a lot of candidates. So this is basically asking you to compare what really happened to the lesson you planned. In other words, you might have planned to do X, Y, and Z, but then when you got in there and did the lesson, student X had this misconception and you needed to address it. Is that how you interpret that, Lindsey?
Yes.
That's sometimes a tricky one. Down here where it says rationale on that last one, it's asking you to justify your choices. You've done something, now here's the reason why. And that's like the whole intentional and justification. Those are your key words for pretty much every component in the National Board process. When it says to cite specific examples from the video, that lends consistency and clarity to your writing. And we always suggest that people use timestamps in the video. So if you're referring to a specific action in your written commentary, then say in the video 6:12. That way the assessor knows exactly where to go and look. This little note, to what extent, that's quantify that. You might want to adverb there, to a high extent, to a high degree, an adverbial phrase right there. It's wanting you to quantify how well you achieved your lesson's goals.
And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, but you want to be real specific here and say on my planning sheet, or one of my goals was da, 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 da. In the video, you see I accomplished this by, so make sure that, you don't want them to have to search for anything. You don't want your score to have to go back and forth and see, well, is that on their planning sheet? Or did they plan for that? You want to make it as explicit as possible. So reference whatever goal you put on that planning sheet, and then talk about how you exhibited that or showed that in your video.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about the commentary prompts is this last one right here. This is a reflective question. What would you do differently? There's 3 types of writing for National Board. There's descriptive. That's just when they're asking you to tell about your lesson. There's analytic. That's where you justify your reasons. And then there is reflective. That's where you think back to what happened and why and what you would do differently. Don't rake yourself over the coals on this one. Every one of us think back on lessons and we're like, oh, I should have done this, and this. Pick a couple of things, a couple of the obvious things, but don't just rake yourself about it, because you're an accomplished teacher and you are wanting the assessor to see you as an accomplished teacher. So we're not going to read these, but when you get your Atlas login information, you may want to go through and just look. This is some of the written commentary that is available for you to read. I'll caution you, it is not in the same format as what you are writing, but it's still, it helps some people just to have a benchmark of, okay, here's the style of writing that they used. I think a lot of these written commentaries are actually from the old way of certifying, like when I went through it. So we definitely wanted to leave some time to answer your questions at the end. But before we do that, these are just general tips. I think we've probably hit most of these. Be specific when you reference your video. Okay, here's a real big one. Make sure that you toot your horn. This is not about our little Southern way of being humble. Toot it, because nobody else is going to toot it for you. You are showing the assessors that you have what it takes. You did this. You planned this. If the kids learned, it's because of something you did. So put yourself as the subject of the sentence. I planned. I searched. Everything, it's you, and it's an action verb, not passive tense. You don't want to say things like, because of the graphic organizer, my students were able to think more clearly. No, I chose to use a graphic organizer, which allowed my students to think more clearly. It's always put yourself in the driver's seat. You've done it. Avoid phrases like believe, think, feel, won't, because when you use phrases like that or words like that, it kind of says that you didn't really do it. You just maybe wanted to, or you would like to. And of course, you've seen this. Your lessons don't have to be perfect. This is a real world. Just do you. And then if on your instructional materials, I would save as much as possible, and then you're not going to submit everything that you've saved. Some things you'll have to cull, but if you have several of your instructional materials handy, then you can go through them and decide which one shows the best evidence of accomplished teaching. Oh, Lindsey.
All right. You want to pull that up?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can click on that link and access this document. Jennifer put it in the chat too. This is just something I created. This is a document that I created. I actually put it on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it gets lots of hits. So you get it for free today. But it is just a simple planning sheet. So it is designed to just get your brain thinking about what you can do as you prepare for your videos. I'm gonna wait till she gets it pulled up there. Okay.
Oh,
So it's the same. Thank you, Farrah. It's the same
Yeah.
on each side. One is for video 1, and then the other side is for video 2. Again, you can type on it, you can write on it, whatever you want to do to just have a brainstorm and get you thinking about how you can what you want to use for your videos. It's going to help you, make sure that you're showing 2 different formats and using different strategies. And so that is there for y'all to use.
that's going to be very, very helpful. Okay, so last thing is I always like to tell people about the scoring rubrics in the back of your portfolio instructions. You will have a scoring rubric for level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1. And of course, I know everyone wants to strive for a level 4. That's excellence. But if you're the kind of person like I am, just the directions for level 4 aren't quite enough information. So I like to look at the level 4 rubric compared to the level 3 rubric. And so here is what the difference is for my portfolio instructions. Level 4, clear, consistent, and convincing evidence. That's going to be level 4 for everybody. Level 3 is just clear. So as I go through and read my final product, I'm asking myself, did I show clear evidence, or is it clear, consistent, convincing? Also, my second bullet here says that the teacher, supports students' use of inquiry and effectively equips students. Over here, it just says competently. So those adverbs, effectively, competently, what's the difference? So it gives you a really great way to look at your final piece and go, oh, okay, well, was that just competent or was that effective? Okay, so we want to give you guys some time to respond, to ask questions. If you want to unmute yourself, go for it. If you want to, you're more comfortable in the chat box, that's cool too.
Farrah and Lindsey, I was wondering if you could speak more about what makes an entry consistent.
Yeah, I'll start. When I'm looking for consistency, I'm looking for it shown up in several different places. So maybe whatever the rubric says that the teacher has done has effectively equipped. I'm looking for, did they show that in the written commentary questions? Is it also in the video? Is it also in the writing about planning questions? Consistency means it is in more than one spot. Not a repeat. You don't want to lift phrases and restate them over and over, but there are examples of that in more than one place.
And that's pretty much what I was going to say, just making sure, again, that everything is aligned, like I've mentioned a couple times.
Alignment, intentionality,
No.
justification.
Okay, I have a very, I guess, a general question. And I know this is going to vary, and I know that it's very individualized, but I'm a planner and I'm trying to wrap my brain around this process, to be honest with you. Can you give me a general time frame? Like, how long did it take you to complete this particular component? Like, was it a semester? Am I looking at, a 9-week period? I want to wrap my brain around it.
Hey, Lisa. How are
Hey,
you?
Lindsey. Good.
Lisa and I are colleagues. So
Yes.
Great.
I will kind of speak just a little bit to that. I started in, I was in the group that they rolled out one component a year. So I could not do more than one component in a year.
Okay.
So I'm kind of in a different situation than people who are trying to do 2 components.
Okay.
But how I handled it was, I took an entire, I think maybe a half day. I took a half day and I just sat, and that is when I read through all of my instructions, all of my planning, documents, everything, and started planning out what I was going to do. And then I probably videoed over the course of maybe a month. I think you could probably do it in 2 weeks, but who knows what, you know, what this year's going to look like. If you go back to school, you might want to go ahead and video. So maybe over the course of like 2 weeks to 4 weeks, just working on a video. And remember, you're going to want to video lots of different lessons. And, you know, if you plan something out and it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board, you know. And then as far as the writing goes, I can't even begin to guess. I mean, I tend to work like in long periods instead of like doing a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. So I think I took like several days to write, and then, you know, more days to come back and revise. So that is how I handled it. And I will be honest, I did not start until January. So this is on this component. This was not something that I started right at the beginning of the year.
And you were able to get it done by the end of that school year. Were you still in the classroom when you did it, or were you?
I was in the classroom, yeah.
Okay.
Some people, you know, it's just really up to your personality, I think, for a lot of people. I tend to work better when I'm under pressure and I know that the deadline's coming up. And also, where are you in your life right now? You know, do you have a busy fall? Do you have a busy spring where you need to kind of schedule to get it done at a different time? It is completely doable in a semester if you've got that motivation to get it done. You know, knowing you, I think you could do it. So, you know, some people who do multiple components in a year, I would say maybe they do like one in the fall and one in the spring, or vice versa. Farrah, do you have any other advice with regard to that?
Now, most of the people that I know do it, you know, one semester they'll do component 2 and one semester they'll do component 3. So about a half a year or so. And some components actually have a timeline. So read your specific instructions to see if it tells you how long you have to do that.
Oh, now see, that would help me.
Yeah, and it may not. I know component 2 does for some. So check on that.
Now, we do have people in the system, Lisa, who did all 4 components in 1 year and were successful. They had a group of people that they worked with, and they hammered it out and got it done. So that's also very attainable.
Yeah.
You just have to look at kind of your personal situation and see what all you think you can manage.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tish had a question earlier about the difference between fairness and equity. And so I'm going to share my screen because I always think of this little graphic coming up. Do you see that? Where it says equality, which is a synonym for fairness. Everybody's getting the same thing, but this little guy can't see the ball game. Equity means they're getting what they need to be successful. So providing whatever resources or scaffolding that the student needs. That's how I kind of view it.
You can talk about different accommodations that you make with students in order to help them reach the standard. You can, you know, you might have, you might provide a graphic organizer for one student, or you might give one student one of those bands that goes around their chair to kick their feet on. You know, think about those things. Those are all things that are going to help you create an equitable environment, because it's whatever that kid needs to be successful. Fair, I would say, with just giving everyone an equal opportunity to be successful. So I'm having trouble thinking of an example right off the top of my head. Those words are so close.
Yeah, this is actually a really good thing for everybody to do some more research on, because they're not synonyms, fairness and equity.
Yes.
But sometimes we lump them like they are. Oh, thank you, William. Yes.
Or, you know, if you like someone said everyone gets a tablet,
Yeah,
using a rubric would be fair. Those things kind of go hand in hand, I believe, and I feel like if you kind of talk about it all together, you're probably going to be fine. I don't think in your writing you need to say these things were fair and then these things were equitable. Like if you said these were the fair and equitable things that I did, I think you would be fine.
So I have a quick question. If let's just say I end up using an exit slip, you know, but it's not part of the 15-minute video segment. Do I include that in my writing as I'm writing about this whole thing, or am I only just writing about the 15 minutes in my video? Does that make sense?
Yes, you will write about things that they do not see in your video.
So I could include that exit slip as part of the 3 things that I would do?
Yes.
Okay. So the video segment is basically just like you're looking at a snapshot, but you're reading about all of that I did. Is that right? Okay.
I'm going to pull up, I'm going to look at the questions real quick.
Yes, you can write about the before and the after the lesson.
Okay.
Now, some of the questions say, you know, how was your approach to teaching this content to the students in this video influenced by past experience? If the question specifically states in this video, you know, you want to make sure that it's visible in your video. But like one question says, how did you monitor and assess student progress during the lesson? Well, then you can talk about your exit ticket. That was not necessarily seen in your video, but then you might include that on your instructional materials page. Gotcha. So that they see that, yes, you used it. They just might not have seen it in the video. And I could be totally wrong about this, but I don't think that the scores are going to like look in your video and, you know, if you've mentioned something in your writing that they don't see, I don't think that they're, you know, like, Farrah, what do you think about that?
I agree with you.
Okay. They're not going to be nitpicking, you know, looking for things that you did not show.
Okay.
I mean, you don't get me wrong, your video needs to show you and your breadth of knowledge, but it does not have to show everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel now? Earlier, y'all said y'all were, most everybody was like, oh no. How's everyone feeling now?
Better.
My anxiety has gone down a bit, knowing that these videos, they're not looking, and that's what we spoke about in our breakout session. They're not looking for perfection, like, you know, every child is behaved and you said exactly what you wanted to say. It being very organic and what we would naturally do, like that. Absolutely. I can breathe after seeing that.
Yeah. That's what they want to see. And like I said, you do these things. That's why this is hard for some people, because it's so automatic for you that you don't always think about the why behind the decisions that you make. And that's the tough part, is just kind of pulling that out and realize, oh, look at that baby. And realizing that, what a cutie. Realizing that there are reasons why you are doing these things. And that is the tough part for some people. So you might watch that video a million times and be like, oh, I noticed that I, you know, pointed my finger at a student. Why did I do that again? Oh, because he was off task and I wanted him to, you know, or whatever. But you do things automatically. You just got to start training your brain to be thinking about the why behind you're doing it.
Lindsey, I'm wondering if you, this is for you or Farrah, like, would you recommend that you let a fellow teacher friend watch one of your videos and just tell you what they see you doing? I struggled trying to figure out what I was identifying things until a friend said, well, you did that thing right there. Oh, okay. Then I could write about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that.
I will say whenever I have read components for people or help supported candidates, I will watch their video and I will ask them like probing questions like, okay, why did you just do that? And then they'll be like, well, because, you know, I'm like, okay, write it down.
Okay.
So having someone else watch it and go through that process with you and find someone who's going to stop and say, why did you do this? Or what made, you know, find a evaluative person who can do that. And that will help you a lot.
That helped me on my renewal. Remember I told you I chose that one video because of the reaction I'd had with the students. I didn't just pick that on my own. My co-teacher was watching it and she was like, Farrah, that's the one you've got to use and here's why. And I was like, oh yeah. It was just so natural. We do things so naturally we don't stop to analyze every little thing we do. So having that other person is huge.
Yeah. And I put my email in the chat. Also, I know Farrah's was up there. I am always willing to help. And if you have questions or want to bounce ideas off of each other, I'm always willing to help. So just know that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I've enjoyed talking to you. And if we can help out in any way, don't hesitate.
Bye, guys. Thank y'all so much.
Bye, y'all.